the most important thing between now and the midterm elections is to make sure that voter registration is squared out. We don't let them steal the election from Democrats, and we don't let them redistrict each state to eliminate congressional seats held by Democrats. We explain it to you so that you can be motivated to do what you need to do to stop both those things from happening. Make sure you're registered. Make sure your right to vote is not taken away from you, especially if you're in a red state. And make sure that we don't lose seats before we even get to vote at the midterms. We cover it all on Legal AF, the podcast. Here's a clip. 250,000 Democrats have been taken off the voting rolls in Miami-Dade County against 49,000 Republicans. We went from, in Miami, the majority of voter registration to 6 points down. And if you think you're registered in your state, especially if it's controlled by red for mail-in voting, because that's the way you like to vote, check again, check now, re-register. Because you may find out the day of the election or the week of the election that you're not registered at all behind the scenes.
So if you go back to and look at the episodes we did back in 2020, 2021, we focused a lot on the Voting Rights Act's erosion, and that predates the founding of the Midas Touch Network, when this Reagan right-wing Federalist Society movement really started taking hold. They had their eyes set on the Voting Rights Act from the 1960s and other similar pieces of legislation as well. And one of the ways they targeted it was to basically get rid of what a requirement was a review by the Department of Justice or a three-judge panel called pre-clearance. So anytime a state wanted to unlawfully gerrymander, it had to be approved by an impartial DOJ or this three-judge panel that it would go in front of. And then they had to apply a formula, and the formula would then be utilized to determine whether or not it was, whether it was like a racist map or an unlawful gerrymander. So back in the mid to early 2000s, you had Sandra Day O'Connor, late Justice O'Connor, was the swing vote that allowed the Voting Rights Act basically not to be gutted, in regarding the formula. But she made this comment like, well, in 20 years, racism may be gone or something, and we may not need to save the Voting Rights Act. So a lot of the right-wing people latched on to that, and they now say racism, the only racism that exists in 2025 is racism against white people. That there is no longer racism against any other people. It's the white people who are being attacked, and that's where the real racism is, racism against white people. So we need to stop all of these other programs and things that look to elevate other people or to look at racial fairness, because white people are the ones who are under attack. So what they were able to do, these MAGAs, is they got rid of the formula. And once they got rid of the formula to determine if there was racially unlawful gerrymanders, what then fell necessarily was pre-clearance, because pre-clearance applies the formula. So if the formula is unlawful, the pre-clearance can't take place. So now what's happening is these states are allowed to basically create whatever maps they are. It doesn't require pre-clearance. And then you have to file a lawsuit as a civil rights group to try to block what the state does. But what the state does is then viewed as presumptively okay. And even if it's unlawful and clearly a completely racist and illegal map, well, then you have to go and appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Unlike the Trump cases, the Supreme Court does not take your case for many, many, many years. And then as it finally hits the Supreme Court says, we need to preserve the map that the state created, even if it's unlawful, because of a principle we apply called the Parcell principle, which basically says we can't get involved in anything as elections approach. And because elections approach every 2 years, there's always one happening pretty quickly. So that's how the Supreme Court says we're not going to even address this issue. And then by the time the Supreme Court addresses the issue, you already have all of the shenanigans taking place. So now what you basically have, right, is Texas doing an unlawful gerrymander. Now in California has independent impartial commissions, which Texas doesn't. So that's why California has fair maps and New York has it built into the Constitution. So now to do fair maps, because blue states were playing by different rules than the red states. The red states were like, F it, fascism, let's go. We want power, screw you. The blue states were like, we're a democracy. We need to take all these. We can't do, unlawful gerrymanders. But now you have people like Gavin Newsom, and we'll close out with this as part of the show, Popok. Gavin Newsom's like, okay, well, we're going to do it if you do it now. And we'll say once the balance in democracy is restored, we'll go back to our independent commission. But no. We're going to do exactly what Texas does. We're going to do a referendum to the voters right away, an emergency referendum, and we're going to have our voters change the California maps. So now, though, we head into this area, Popok, because of what the Republicans have done. And it's not a both sides issue, what the Republicans have done, where, you know what, we're just going to see all blue states that are blue, all blue, states that are red, all red. And then you're going to have the unlawful censuses taking place to try to rig that. And where this leads is the system is already broken. But where this basically leads is everything that was bipartisan in the freaking 60s and the 70s to try to deal with this stuff, because of this race to the bottom now, which you have to fight fire with fire. So I support 100% what Newsom's doing. But this is the world that we live in now, created by Donald Trump. And it will cause massive damage long-term to our country, the way we're seeing in the economy. It's just the foundations of this contract, right? The Constitution's a contract. Trump hates contracts. He rips it apart. That contract has been basically destroyed, and it's a free-for-all right now. The United States of America isn't what it just isn't. We're not what we were anymore. I'll give you the final thought, though, Popok, but I'll toss it to you.
There's a reason 63% of Americans don't trust the Democrats either with government. It's because government is broken, and part of the breaking of it is we don't have statespeople any longer. We want there to be. We promote them, but we have, as you said, this tug of war. Mutual assured destruction, led by the United States Supreme Court, who undermined completely the Voting Rights Act. Clarence Thomas had it as a mission to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, affirmative action. It was on his checklist, a shopping list. He's accomplished almost everything on the shopping list. Roe versus Wade, off. Woman's right to choose, gone. Affirmative action in higher education, and that helped him, and in getting a leg up in the job market, gone. Voting Rights Act, no longer necessary because we live in his world in a colorblind society. Does anybody really think we live in a colorblind society where everybody has equal rights as they destroy public education, which is usually the thing that helps people get a leg up to have a good, but when Donald Trump destroys and hollows out and chloroforms the Department of Education, and everything else. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? John Roberts has tried to destroy the Voting Rights Act since he's been the Chief Justice. He's been relatively successful in doing that. And we are not in a post-racial America. We are in, as some of the historians that I've spoken to on Legal AF said, we are scarily close to where we were emotionally and just in terms of results to where we were in just the decade or so after Reconstruction and the Civil War. That's the period that we're in. And we have a Supreme Court that's scarily similar to the Supreme Courts that just followed the Civil War, not the Civil Rights Act, the Civil War. And so once you destroy the Voting Rights Act, and once you make it impossible to see any illegal racial gerrymandering by the way you define things. And just to be clear, because I don't want to have a show where everybody's eyes roll back in their head and they're like, what is he talking about? We're talking about, when we start talking about redistricting, I know we're going to lose some people, but I don't want to. It's really, really important. It's how the congressional and other maps are drawn and how your representation is made Because if you don't have proper representation by having a representative in Congress who's close to you and your needs, because that district has been eliminated, combined with another district, a competitor district led by the other party, your voice is not going to be heard. When this country was founded, we didn't have districts. We had at-large members of Congress. Okay? And you know what happened then? So to enhance representation, a representative form of government, we came up with districts. And then, of course, the monkey business happened. Let's start drawing it away to cut out fill in the blank party. And now you have a Department of Justice that is supposed to be the sentinel, the watchdog, overlooking, I'm starting to laugh saying it, doing oversight over whether these districts are representative of the people, so that we have a representative form of government. But this Department of Justice and Civil Rights Division is run by somebody who's MAGA right-wing Republican. So they don't find anything wrong with the maps being proposed by the Republicans. They will with the Democrats, but with the Republicans, eliminating 5 Democratic seats, 5 in Texas, a state we thought was getting purpley, bluish maybe, and now will be concrete setting red for generations until at least the next census, hopefully in the control of the Democrats. But this is, as you've said at the top of the show, we've said throughout, this should not be a Republican versus Democratic set of ideals about what makes America great. It should just be a statesman, diplomacy, patriotism that drives these discussions. But it doesn't, because the Republicans have led identity politics and hatred as a core principle and as a plank of their platform since before Lee Atwater and Karl Rove and Roger Ailes at Fox, because they are it's hard to believe, until the MAGA populism took over, they were a narrow party, a party that did not appeal to enough people to generally win national office. And the only way they could get enough votes to overcome the Democratic advantage, yes, we had a Democratic advantage, is to play identity politics, to drive wedges between people, to put people seething at each other's throats, whether it was gays in the military or gay marriage or reproductive rights or transgender. You know, they look for, they find whatever boogeyman they can find to try to drive the Christian right or other groups to them and away from the Democrats. And that's all that we've been watching. And things like the Voting Rights Act, which were passed by bipartisan Congress, coming off a president that was a true leader in that area. You're talking about the Lyndon Johnsons, prior to him, the John F. Kennedys, Clinton, and that kind of thing. But this is where we're at. This is the cards we have now been dealt here with the Legal AF audience. But as you like to say, we're in this together. We vibrate on the same frequency, and we will continue not just to report on what just happened. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, look out, there's we're hurtling towards an abyss, but there's a way for us to avoid the abyss and working together, both politically and emotionally, to get there together. And that's why you and I get up every morning and start brushing our teeth, thinking about how to accomplish these goals, not just being reporters, but being leaders in our own way of a group of people that want to make real fundamental change to get back to where we were as an America. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics twice a week on a show we call Legal AF, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's about an hour long. I co-founded this show with Ben Meiselas about 5 years ago. We need some help, to be frank. We need more audio downloads. Pick that up on Apple Podcast and Spotify and the rest. Leave 5-star reviews and comments. That helps. And do the same thing on the YouTube. And then we need more subscribers on Legal AF YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN. If just 10% of the people that watch my work would actually subscribe, then our subscriber base, which is free, would match our audience. And that's where we need to be to stay on the air. So come on over, hit the subscribe button, 12 new videos a day there as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak.
I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popak Firm today at 1-877-POPAK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopakfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popak Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.